Hello, I'm Casey Aiken, and this is 21 This Week. Coming up next, Maryland Primary Day is Tuesday, May 14th. Can David Trone hold off Angela Alsobrooks? Who will win the mudslinging CD6 race? And will disaffected Republicans vote for former Governor Larry Hogan? And more. Our panel of insiders will give you the story behind the story. We're joined by former county council member and president at Rebuilding Together Montgomery County, Nancy Floreen, and vice chairman of the Montgomery County Republican Central Committee, Stacey Sauter. Stay tuned for these stories and more on the next 21 This Week. There are very exciting things to discuss regarding this year's Senate race in Maryland. Both parties have interesting candidates running and are hotly contested. The Maryland Senate Democratic primary race is considered by many to be in a dead heat, according to recent polls. Nancy, this race features 6th District Congressman David Trone running against County Executive of Prince George's County, Angela Alsobrooks. Mr. Trone has, according to polls, held the early lead. What's your assessment of this race?
Well, it's gotten interesting. There's been Mr. Trone has spent, gazillions of dollars on this race. Miss Angela Brooks seems to be coming up the side here. She's gotten an increased number of support, most recently by all the former heads of the Democratic Party in the state of Maryland. Now, that's very unusual. For former party heads to take a position on a Democratic primary, usually, they just stand back and permit the race to go on its own. So, you don't usually see Ike Leggett endorsing a primary candidate the way he was shown just recently. So it appears to be quite the horse race.
So, Stacey, Trone has spent just an ungodly amount of money, as Nancy alluded to in the opening, to secure the nomination. What is your assessment of this race and how it matches up for you guys?
Well, I agree with Nancy's assessment that it's really turned into a horse race. And according to the latest poll that just came out from Emerson College, The Hill, and DC News Now, it is going to be a photo finish. They have Angela Alsobrooks up 1 point over Trone with a margin of error of 3 points. So it's very, very close. Listen, she is a very accomplished, polished politician. She's the underdog in this story. If she wins, it's going to be a big story for quite a while.
Well, I think it's fascinating, frankly. I mean, personally, and I've said this before on the air, I have to wonder about someone's motivation to spend that much money on a U.S. Senate seat. I mean, a U.S. Senate seat's important. I worked in the Senate for Senator Scoop Jackson, and I know how important it can be, but it just still seems like I'd love to know the motivation that goes behind this.
In response to that, I think, and I don't know, but if you have all that money, you don't think about the details. You just say, spend whatever. I mean, it's a godsend for all those pollsters and campaign people and video production people out there. They can, it's really expensive to run a race like this. And I'm sure they say, sure, let's do this, let's do that. But I don't think that's really high on Mr. Trone's mind. I mean, what's in it? This is a reminder that money isn't everything in a race. And that's certainly been shown in the Montgomery County elections as well. So,
well, I'm glad Mr. Trone is supporting the Biden economy. So I want to go back. I want to go back to you, Stacey. In the Republican primary, former Governor Larry Hogan is running, and he's being attacked on the right by candidate Robin Ficker. In the last election, some Republicans were disaffected or disenchanted with Governor Hogan, including, they nominated and elected Dan Cox, who was virulently anti-Hogan. What's going to happen in this race?
Well, I've said this before. You've heard me say this before. This is Larry Hogan's race to lose. However, Robin, in a self-funding effort, has really put out some polished advertising, and I think it might be making a dent. I don't think it's going to make a difference. I will say that I do know some conservatives who are throwing their support behind John Myrick instead of Robin Ficker. So those hardcore conservatives, if Dan Cox wins in the CD6 primary, we'll have somebody to vote for there. Don't know if they'll sit on their hands if Hogan wins the primary. I don't know if they'll sit on their hands in the general election or not. But again, it's, I believe, Hogan's to lose.
Okay, Nancy, assuming Hogan wins, who's the better matchup for the general election?
Anybody on the Democratic ticket. Well, let's agree that this race is about Biden versus Trump. And so the party regulars are going to show up in droves. And people, by and large, don't look at the ballot and say, oh, I'll pick one from this column and one from this column. It's going to be pure party line voting all the way down, I suspect. And I think either David or Angela will win.
Well, Stacey, I'll give you the last word on that. Seems to me they split tickets for Larry Hogan before.
Well, this is true, but I would also like to note that there are a lot more unaffiliateds now, and they have 37% in some polls showing people that have not decided yet. So I think that that's a clear indication that this could be anybody's race right now.